welcome our Club Group Director for District 121, Distinguished Toastmaster Savita Salian, to introduce the first education session presenter.
Thank you, DTM Sindhuja. Past International Director, DTM Mohammed Murad, DTM Sarao Viraj, Past Regional Advisor, DTM Gauri Sheshadri, District Director, DTM Nirmala Lili, Program Quality Director, Distinguished Toastmaster, Vanita Rangarajan, past and present district leaders, dear Toastmasters, a very good evening to you. They say everything magical happens outside your comfort zone. This year, when a pandemic was on the rise, we decided to have online meeting. The home is a cocoon where every member feels safe, a comfort zone from where no one wants to go out. Many a time, it works as an advantage for members as they can participate in Toastmasters meeting from the comfort of their homes. In a short span of time, we became accustomed to each other, to the relaxed atmosphere of our home, and we feel happy and at ease while performing our roles in front of the system to a known audience. But it limits our growth as public speakers and leaders. Leaving out the comfort zone and going beyond one's own boundaries is essential for a good speaker and a leader. Organizing demo meets, mentoring, sponsoring the clubs, active sister program, buddy programs is going beyond the club environment. That's why, dear members of District 121, it is our privilege this evening to introduce you to a person who will give us a global perspective of Toastmasters and its relevance outside the club. He is a well-known name in the Toastmasters fraternity. His journey in Toastmasters began in the year 1996, and since then he has served at various leadership roles, including the International President of Toastmasters International during the year 2014-15. After a 20 years career with the Dubai Police Force, he retired as a Lieutenant Colonel in 2003. His experience over 3 decades is spread across the field of emergency medical service management, human resource development, and strategic planning. He is an entrepreneur by profession and manages several successful businesses in Dubai. He holds an MBA and a Master of Quality Management degree from the University of Wollongong, Australia. He is also a graduate of the City of Dubai's Leadership Development Program and has received training at Harvard, London Business School, and the Singapore School of Government. Please put your hands together and let me welcome our special speaker for today, none other than our past International President, Distinguished Toastmaster, retired Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Murad.
Thank you very much, Savita, district officers of District 121, past region advisor, my good friend Gauri, and most importantly, the members who are participating in this session. Thank you very much for being here, for giving your time, for listening to myself and Saru. I will be sharing my experience of what it means to go beyond the club. And probably going beyond the club, whenever someone hears this phrase, you might think from the club to area to division to district and above. And I will certainly be talking about this. But I would like also to talk about beyond the club, outside of Toastmasters. Because whatever we learn within the realm of Toastmasters, whether it's within the club or outside the club or beyond the club, above the club level, we have the choice to implement whatever we learn into real life. And that is the true meaning of going beyond the club. So whenever I'm talking, at whatever level I'm talking, I would like you to reflect on your experiences and reflect on how these experiences within Toastmasters have taken you outside and how it has affected your behavior, your understanding, and the way you perceive things outside of Toastmasters, because that is the ultimate goal of our Toastmasters mission. It is making you a better person through going the different levels of learning within Toastmasters. One of which, the most important, is actually the club level. So I would be falling short of giving you the full spectrum of information and perspective if I do not talk about my club experience also, because that is the nucleus. That is where you make or break things in Toastmasters. And once that experience is enriched, that experience is capitalized on, it's polished, this is where you will be able to go beyond the club effectively. You see, anyone can go beyond the club. But how effective you are going beyond the club is what is important. So I'll start by telling you the story of how I joined Toastmasters. And I'm sure some of you might be expecting that it might be different than your experience. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's no different. It's exactly like 99.999% of all the members that have been invited to Toastmasters through someone else. And my journey started in 1996. So, you know, that's probably when I was 5 years old, and you can do the math, and you know my age now. By the way, you are the first people who are seeing my post-COVID look with the beard. No one has seen me with a beard before you. Even my club hasn't seen me with a beard and the bald look. So COVID has taught me a lot of going beyond many things that I thought I could not. So 1996, I was working in the police, and we had a business dealing with this company. And within this company, there was a person called William Sampson. I was meeting him a couple of times in a month for a certain thing that we wanted to do. And one day, he invites me, and he says, "Why don't you come to a Toastmasters meeting?" And you know, being in the police, when someone talks about toast, we think that it's somewhere where there are alcohol, drinks, and so on. And being from the UAE, we were not allowed to go to bars and all this. So I said, "I'm sorry, I cannot come to a place where they serve alcohol." So I said, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's about public speaking. At that time, communication and leadership was nowhere in the horizon of Toastmasters. We were only promoting public speaking. So he said, it's about developing the skills of public speaking. Why don't you come and join us? So I said, okay, I have nothing to do. I'll join you within a Toastmasters meeting. And as soon as I went to that meeting, there were a bunch of suited and booted gentlemen and ladies. And they were crazy enough to clap as soon as someone stood up to speak, and clap again as soon as someone came back and sat down. It was really strange. I said, these people are not normal. There must be a kind of cult or something. And the meeting went on, a couple of speakers and the different sessions. The meeting finished in around 2 hours and went home. Thought nothing about it. A few months later, William Sampson meets me again. And he says, why don't you come to a club meeting? I said, are they the same bunch of crazy people who are clapping as soon as someone stood up? He said, yes, but maybe it will be a bit different this time. So I said, okay, I'll come and join your club again. I went to this club, and something very strange happened this time. I was invited to be a table topic speaker. So they gave me a subject, and I had no idea what it was, and I didn't remember it even after the meeting finished. Gave the 2-minute speech, went back to sit down. End of the session, they call up my name, and they say, you are the best table topic speaker of the day. And they gave me this small trophy, which they gave you to take home. I don't know how, they were a rich club at that time, but they gave away trophies for us to take back home. So I took this trophy, and immediately after the president said the meeting is adjourned, and they were very formal, by the way, the vice president membership came up to me and told me, this is the membership form, would you like to join? And guess what happened? I joined. And the rest was history. You see, my story with Toastmasters started with one person inviting. And going beyond the club starts with an invitation. So what I would like to emphasize here, anyway, let me tell you this, I found out later that the table topics session was rigged. They gave the trophy to the guests. Within reason. I know a lot of people are thinking about integrity and all this. Within reason, if the speaker, the guest speaker, and they always have guest speakers within their sessions, if the guest speaker was very close to or at par with the member speakers, they gave the trophy to the speaker who came as a guest. Now, what I want you to think of, if it takes a trophy to have a member sign up that would eventually become the international president of Toastmasters International, wouldn't it be worth it? You see, talking about going beyond the club can never happen unless we have members who are polished, developed inside the club. And that is what happened. Now, what I would like to ask you is, who is your William Sampson? Who is the one who invited you to become a Toastmaster? Now, going beyond the club doesn't mean that you should have had a William Sampson. Going beyond the club means, are you a William Sampson? Or have you been a William Sampson. That is the true meaning of going beyond the club. Sourcing people, inviting them into the Toastmasters, and making sure that they go beyond the club. You see, what I have learned within my Toastmasters journey is the fact that it's not possible for you to learn unless you take others with you. It's not possible for you to lead unless you have other leaders coming along with you. And that is the true meaning of going beyond the club. It's becoming a leader who is effective, a leader who could make a change, and starting with yourself. And probably this is what I did, because when I joined, my club was the only club in Dubai at that time. So one club. Right now, we have more than 75 clubs in Dubai. So imagine how many William Sampsons have come along the journey. And within the club, I didn't take all the leadership positions within the executive committee, because at that time, they were asking people to come and take roles. There are many people who were transitioning in Dubai. So I was asked to take on the role of Vice President Public Relations. And that's the first role I took as the executive committee. And it was an exciting role because that is the time that we were building the club. The club started a year before I joined. So a year after that, we were just starting to do the PR and build the club. So that is the time that I built a team for us to make the first newsletter in order for us to have a bigger public relations and probably entertain the members also. So Vice President Public Relations was the first role. And the next year, I was asked to take on the role of president. I believe that they thought I was doing a good job. Therefore, they asked me to become president. And how many of us have actually been asked to take up roles because they believe that we are good for it? So I took up the role of the president. And at that time, we had no districts. We had a bunch of clubs in the Gulf. And those clubs decided that they need to come together to have a conference from all the countries of the Gulf. 7 countries decided to come together and do a conference. Now, probably that was the first experience I had beyond the club. We had one more club in Abu Dhabi, and the members in Abu Dhabi drove 1.5 hours for every meeting from Abu Dhabi to Dubai in order to support us. So one club supporting the other is the first step of going beyond the club. So let me ask you, how many joint meetings do you actually have in between clubs? And a lot of us depend on the area to initiate joint meetings, while in fact you don't need to do that, because 2 clubs can start going beyond the club by having a joint meeting and sharing the experiences, because that is what's important in Toastmasters. So we didn't have any entity to support us. We only knew this club environment, and then things formed up where a territorial council was formed with all the Gulf countries. And that is the time that we understood that there are areas and divisions and district at that time. So we were a territorial council, and they were forming areas at that time. And that was a year after I came off the president, and I finished my immediate past president. And they were looking for someone to take on the role of area governor, that at that time it was called. And before me, within the club, when I was president, there was a person called Royston Fernandez, who had joined after me, and he was my vice president education. The story goes that he became the area governor before me. And he is the one who asked me to consider taking area governor after him. So you see, again, when we see what happens within the club, there are always people who will be taking you along the journey. And probably Royston Fernandez was a key person who brought me outside the club to take on leadership roles. Now, I know that I have heard many who complain against someone asking them over and over again to take roles and participate in leadership positions. And Gauri is laughing here because she has gone through the experience. But I guarantee you that going beyond the club is an experience that you should not miss for anything. Now, saying that, I'm not saying that taking on roles is easy. And it will not be easy if you have the right intentions. So going beyond the club, even taking roles within the club, has to be with the correct intentions. Now, I know that, probably Indians and Arabs also take on roles just for the sake of the title. I know we are famous for it. And I've heard some of your leaders say that there might be some people who take on roles just for the title. And if that's the intention, when you are going beyond the club and even within the leadership of the club, because ExCom roles within the club is also going beyond the club. Because the club is for members. Taking on leadership roles is going beyond the club. Now, if your intentions are correct, that means you are taking on the leadership role in order to first develop yourself. And that should be key. There are many people who say, I want to serve. That's why I am taking on leadership role. They would not be telling you the whole truth if that's the phrase that they are using. Because that's the next part of what leadership roles are all about. But the first part is for you to develop yourself. And you should not be shy about it, by the way. And I always say that people need to be selfish first in order to be selfless when they take on other people and develop other people as leaders. Why? Simply because they are going to be more effective. You see, if a doctor enrolls in a university and they have the intention of opening a clinic without taking up the knowledge, then they are taking on the job to kill people, not to cure them. But if they are selfish enough to study hard, to learn whatever needs to be learned in order for them to be good doctors, that is the time that they can be selfless and benefit others rather than ruin them. Similarly for engineers. Now, if they don't learn the structures of buildings properly, then probably the buildings that they are going to build are going to be collapsing on other people. So going beyond the club means that you need to be selfish first. And you do not need to hide it. But let me tell you, if it is the only thing that you would want to do, it's not going to work also. Because the people in Toastmasters are very clever, by the way. And probably the ones also outside of Toastmasters, they feel what are your intentions. Therefore, progressing through the leadership role, it's important that your intentions are right, because it is going to be portrayed indirectly to whoever you meet and whoever you interact with within your leadership role. Right? So, area director. Interestingly, throughout my leadership journey within Toastmasters, every role that I had taken had a 1-year gap between that role and the next role. So a year between president and area, a year from area to division, a year from division to district. Now, an interesting story about how I took up the district governor role at that time. I didn't do the role of LGM and LGET. I was division governor at that time, and then I had a year of, I thought that was it. I'm not going to do anything else within leadership. But then what I saw in the district was probably going against the policies and procedures of Toastmasters in a very subtle way. And I did not swallow that in a positive way. I believe that the policies and procedures of Toastmasters are the ones that need to be followed to the T. And that is why I gave in my name for the role of district governor. And this is where I believe, again, that you need to be sincere in order to be taken seriously. And thankfully, the members thought I was qualified to take on the district governor role, and they voted for me. So a year from division to district. Now, the year I became district governor, this was the first year that the district was announced as provisional district. So we were transitioning from territorial council to a provisional district. And on that year, all the districts outside of the US and Canada were named as districts not assigned to regions, right? So we were the outsiders from the actual regions which were in the US. So we were going to the convention to get trained. In that training, we had all the district trios from all the districts outside of US, Canada being trained in the convention. Now, of course, everyone gets trained in the convention. What happened is that there was a past district governor who had taken on the position of first district in the whole world for 5 years, consecutive 5 years before the year that we were being trained in. That was in 2003. So he came in and was teaching us how to become the world's number one, sharing experience, right? That's what counts. And his equation was very simple. And surprisingly, there are many times that people tell us simple things and we don't even bother to look at it from a perspective that this might be important or precious. Now, what he said is that the equation is very simple. All the 5 district governors who achieved world's number one did that by creating clubs. At that time, probably the distinguished district was a bit different than what it is right now, but creating clubs was the main aspect, among others, of course, to achieve the world's number one. And probably now, if you do the math, that would be also a measure that, and I know India is very well known for becoming number one, and we're jealous that you have taken this from us, but we're happy because you have learned that it's important to build clubs and bring in members. Now, within this same training, there was this question that World Headquarters director at that time, Stan Stills, was taking around the room. And he was asking the district teams, what would you like to achieve this year? So, they started with a couple of other districts, and then my turn came with my 2 officers. And foolishly, I said, I will achieve number one in the world. And everyone was laughing at me, including my 2 assistants. So Nirmala, please take note. And, no one believed me. Said, this newcomer and just provisional district, he's just bluffing. He's just, talking just to shine out. And I really meant it. Because what happened is that we went back and we diligently put our district success plan. And from putting the district success plan till the end of the year, this district success plan was followed to the T, monitored, and made sure that things are happening according to the district success plan. So taking on leadership roles doesn't just mean that you build a team that is strong. It means that you need to have a team that is strong and follows a plan, right? I always say there are 2 P's for leadership: people and processes, people and policies. One before or without the other will not work. And take my word for it, it will not work. You have to have a plan. You see, at the end of the year, it was those times there was no online. So we had to fill in the papers for clubs by hand and then send them in. So the stamp on the envelope needed to be before the 1st of July. So it needed to be 11:59 of the day before of 1st of July, okay? June, the last day of June. At 10 o'clock on 31st of June, I was sitting with one of the club charter members, filling in the papers for the last club that we had created. Not knowing what will happen, because at those times we had printouts, dot matrix printouts that came to us by mail 2 months after the report was generated. So we had absolutely no idea what was happening with us and at what level were we in terms of the ranking in the world. Surely enough, a few days later, I got a call from the international president at that time. That was Ted Corcoran. And picked up the phone. It was the middle of the night for me. Woke up from my sleep, and he says, Mohammed, congratulations, you have become distinguished. So I said, Ted, I know that we are distinguished. Is there anything else? So he said, congratulations, you have become President's distinguished. I told him, Ted, I'm not waiting for President's distinguished. There might be something else that you want to tell me. And he gave me the news that we are #1 in the world. And it's, you know, the feeling at that time brought to me everything that had happened from the time of that training a year before. And we went to the convention next year. Those people who were laughing at me were laughing with me right now. And this is the beauty of success when you progress, right? You will not be able to progress. You will not be able to go beyond the different levels of leadership unless you make sure you work hard for results to come. There are many people who give up just because they didn't make it. And probably my message here is that it's not the battles that you lose, it's winning the war that matters. You see, I have lost a lot of battles. One of the most important battles that I lost is after I finished district governor, I took a year off, just like the other roles. A year off. I didn't want to do anything else. But then someone came and whispered into my ears and said, you might be material for international director. So I said, why not? As long as I have the time and I will do justice to the role. And this is very important, by the way. Every one of you, even as a member, you need to have the time and you need to do justice to the role and the position that you take. If you don't have these two, don't even consider taking on a role. And probably this is something that I tell members also. I always tell members or potential members when we do demo meetings and so on, I always tell them, Toastmasters is not for everyone, right? And it's not for everyone, by the way. Do not fool people and tell them, you know, it's going to be okay and you are going to be very successful and so on. because it needs commitment and it needs for you to respect others. You see, if you become a member and you are not committing to your roles, you're not taking on roles, you are disrespecting the others. But what I always tell them also, if Toastmasters is not for you, there is something in this world that is for you. And it's your responsibility to look for it. And here I'd like to highlight the fact that going beyond the club does not mean that you need to take on official roles. It will be good if you want to experience that, but not everyone will be able to take on the roles simply because there are not enough roles. The fact of the matter is that those people that I know, that I have come across within Toastmasters, who have absolutely no titles, are much more better leaders than the ones that have taken up titles, provided they have dedicated the time and the effort to make sure that they help others. Now, I have a friend, and I'll tell you his name. His name is Abraham Thomas. He is from Abu Dhabi, and he joined also Toastmasters many, many years ago, like me. Abraham Thomas finished his DTM last year, right? 1996, and he finished his DTM last year. But he has been a driver of chartering more than 50 clubs. Now, look at someone who has taken the role of area, division, probably even district, just for the title. And look at Abraham Thomas, who has gone much more beyond any district governor or many of the district governors that I know in terms of making a difference. So your goal of going beyond the club should be the experience, the journey, not the destination, and not the role. Huge difference. And again, I want to reiterate, members will see right through you. If your intentions are not right and you're just winging it, they will see right through you. So be careful, because if someone is listening to me now and they see someone who's winging it, they'll tell you that you're winging it. And that probably is another thing that I would like to talk about in going beyond the club. You need to be honest. And you need to call a spade in order to be successful as a leader beyond the club and probably within the club, right? Do not whitewash. You know, we all learn to be evaluators, right? But there are many evaluators who whitewash and still keep on whitewashing members left, right, and center. What benefit is that going to give the person who is speaking, or even the leader that you are developing? So if there are the district trios there, if a division director is not doing their job properly, you need to call them out. Because a division director who's not doing their job properly is affecting anywhere from 200 to 800 people who are members of his or her division, right? So your responsibility as a leader is towards this 800 people. And if it's a district, a large district like yours, it's probably 2,000 to 3,000 people. So who would you consider? 3,000 people or one person who does not respect those members and themselves? So leadership is about value. Leadership is about understanding the responsibility and holding yourself accountable without anyone else holding you accountable. You see, let me get back to why I failed in the first time that I ran for international director. You know, they told me, you're a good person for international director, so why don't you run for it? I said, okay. I have been successful in each and every role, including district governor, which I ran from the floor and made it. So I had, you know, a big head at that time. I can do it easily. And surely enough, I gave in my name, and I made a fool out of myself. Why? Because I didn't make it. And the person who ran against me had double the amount of votes that I got. Why? Because I became complacent. And I understood that after I lost the elections. And how many of you have gone into elections? Yeah. How many have lost in elections? And I, you know, Safir is there also. I think I can see Safir, Jyotika, Sindhuja. You see, one of the hardest hitting things that could happen to you is to lose an election, right? It's an eye-opener. And it doesn't matter whether you have worked hard or not, because you would expect that you are doing a good job and you would win. But if you do not, it's the hardest hitting things. And that tells you that people do not consider you worthwhile in comparison to someone else. And that's not the mistake of someone else, by the way, right? It's our mistake. And it's because we didn't prepare well. How well prepared are you to go beyond the club? You see, it takes hard work, skill, time, and people who will help you. Because what I learned in the first time that I ran for international director is that it's important to have a very effective team for your election. People who will vouch for you, and other people will see the value of these people vouching for you. So the little bird came and whispered into my ears, not the next year, but the year after, because I took an off year after. It's all coincidence, by the way. There was a period of rest before any role that I took in the next level. So maybe that's something probably that you need to consider, because a rest is worthwhile. Reflecting and making sure that you are capable of going through. So second year, very strong team, very strong messaging, training for each and every session for elections, the showcase, my messaging, everything was perfect. And the results were very positive because I made it to become an international director. And on to second VP. Second VP was the toughest thing that I have ever gone through. And probably the leadership experience that you go through for second VP is one of the most excruciating experiences that you could go through, because you have to talk to all. If you want to succeed, you need to talk to as much as possible from all the district officers around the world. At that time, we had 240 district officers. So all the district trios within 80 districts at that time. And it's tough. The key is how bad do you want it? So how badly do you want to take on the next leadership experience? And as I said, you need to be selfish. And when I took on the elections or I went into campaigning for second VP, I was actually campaigning for president. Because unless you do something really, really stupid within the 5 years, you are going to become the president. And that's the time that you get prepared. The time that you get prepared. One of the most important things is that you prepare yourself. Outside the club, but the nucleus is in the club. You see, the same principles that I learned from my president when I became a member in my club are the same principles that I was applying at each and every step of the way. And it's very simple because Toastmasters has given it to you in a golden platter. And the answer is the 4 core values. Simple and nothing else. Integrity, respect, service, and excellence. If you have these, you are bound to be successful. And as I said in the beginning, it's not in Toastmasters, it's what you do within Toastmasters to take it outside. That's truly going beyond the club. And I believe I have done that because I've made sure that I'm successful in whatever I take, putting in the Toastmasters principles and the core values. So you want to go beyond the club, have the core values in your perspective all the time, work hard, and you are bound to go beyond the club effectively. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DTM Murad. I believe that your entire session was a series of mic drop dialogues and mic drop experiences, and I'm sure all the audience have learned something or the other and will take away and will implement in their Toastmasters journey. So we have one question for now, and we'll be taking one more question because we are running short of time. The first question is from Tejaswini Hegde. She asks, sir, you said about giving time. How did you manage your professional life and Toastmasters?
Well, when I joined Toastmasters, I was in the police and I was in the criminal investigation. So I didn't have time. I believe being able to be successful in taking in on roles or even doing something like Toastmasters depends a lot on you being able to say no. I'm sure Gauri and Nirmala and Savita have caught on the bug of Toastmasters. Therefore, most of the district officers believe that they cannot say no. They believe that everything is their responsibility to do. If they get an invitation, they have to say yes. But you can only make time if you learn to say no. You have to have your priorities well, and then look at what you can spare and what you can reject.
Thank you so much, DTM Murad. DTM Murad, we have one more question. This question is from Distinguished Toastmaster Gauri. She asked, could you please elaborate on the concept that a leader should lead from the middle?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I talked about this, and probably Nirmala remembers in the Kerala Toastmasters, because there was a similar question. There is no leading from the front or the end for leaders. A lead, even the middle, because you see, it's very fluid. A leader has to be among their teams. They have to be among the people that they are working with. Now, where exactly, I invite you to read the book, The Situational Leadership, where you need to be in certain places at certain times, right? You cannot be in the middle, right, all the way. There are times that you will need to be in front. There are times that you will need to be at the back, sometimes on the sides. It all depends on how you develop your skill of where you need to be at what time. And that's probably one of the leadership skills that is very hard to acquire. If you are conscious enough, you will be able to be successful in honing this skill.
Thank you so much, DTM Murad. For that amazing session with full of mic drop dialogues.